Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Dumbo, Prince of the Elephants, fly with me.
A legend
Let's put on a show.
comes to life like never before.
Let's get ready for
Dumbo, rated PG. Everywhere,
Hello. This is Adolf Vega, and I have with me Mrs. Krista Strom.
Hello.
And today we're doing a Dumbo spoilerific review.
Yeah.
And as a bonus, we'll compare this to the original animated movie, which I recently rewatched immediately after watching this new 2019 remake. So I am fresh on both of these topics. We'll get into the spoilers of the 2019 movie first, and then we'll get into the kind of comparison of the original after. So we're going to go into the story little by little. And this is your final warning on the spoilers.
Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Alright, so the film starts with some trains going by, and it has the circus performers, and, kind of some of the different things the circus will have, which I thought was a really cute way to kind of introduce the circus. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like the establishing sequence. I don't think the establishing sequence didn't look that great in 3D, just because a lot of the shots they were overlaying on top, like the main shot of the train was 3D, but some of the shots they were overlaying were 2D, so it looked kind of weird.
Now, I did like that the train paint wasn't like pristine. Like you could tell that they've been around for a while. It was not like they just painted it like you would think in a movie would do. It looks weathered. It looks realistic. It looks like something that could be around for 30 years. They've been painting.
Yeah.
It's a little little detail that I really like. And you get the train come in, and the characters, some of the kid characters decide to meet up with a stranger there, but eventually you learn that's their father that lost his arm in presumably World War One.
Yeah, because it's set in 1919, I believe.
Yeah. And the circus, I guess the main performer, he got a new elephant, and this new elephant is pregnant, and
The ringleader,
yes. It's kind of weird talking about circuses in 2019.
Yeah.
Because basically circuses are basically a dead art right now. Am I right?
Yeah.
I think Ringling Brothers stopped doing it because the cruelty of elephants, which is actually kind of touched on here. It's not to a huge extent, but it's one of those things that, as now in modern times, we know that to train an elephant, you basically have to break their spirit, which is as cruel as you think it is. Yeah. And the other animals, they're not domesticated animals, so it's kind of cruel and kind of mean. And, the circus is a kind of a complicated history to it, where, the freak shows, in a way, is a good thing because some of those people could never get a job, so that it's better than nothing, but they're still, what I'm saying? It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I actually did take some circus performance classes. Yeah, I took aerial silks classes.
Fascinating.
And I know from experience that it's insanely hard, and it like works out your entire body. So I have like huge admiration for like any of the trapeze performers and aerial artists, because like they're like some serious athletes to be able to do that.
So yeah, we learn the ringmaster has a new elephant and is about to give birth, and we learn that the father comes back, but their mother dies off screen before the movie starts. It's kind of weird about that. I was like, wait, I don't know. It seems like they have a theme going on with different parents not existing. Like, you don't know where the father of Dumbo is. You know where the mother is, and you don't know where the mother is of the kids. You just know where the father is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed that too.
I think the mother died of like typhoid.
Oh, she said flu, the influenza.
Oh.
So, but we never got to meet her. We just barely know of her. And the kids are like a main part of this movie. Which is, a pretty interesting way to start things off. With the little boy and little girl, and they're trying to watch over Dumbo, and like apparently the dad was a big deal, being like a cowboy, and now that he only has one arm, he can't do that anymore, and that wasn't part of the show. And no one believes the kids, obviously, that the elephant can fly, which it does sound ridiculous when you put it that way. And they are traveling troupe. They go to different towns and have, do their circus act, and then go to the next town and just kind of keep going. I really like Danny DeVito here as Max Medici, or from the Medici brothers.
I did too. I actually think he was pretty good in this movie.
This is the second time Danny DeVito's been a ringmaster. I think the first time was with the Good Fish, the Big Fish. Have you seen that movie from 2003 or something?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's a really romantic kind of big story. That is a really sweet movie. But that's neither here or there. Eventually, we find out everyone gets to find out that Dumbo is able to fly with a feather, and that becomes the big part of the show. Or at first, they don't know what to do with Dumbo because he looks so silly because of his big ears, and people make fun of him. And how they actually introduced the name Dumbo, because the mom was Mrs. Jumbo, and like they had like a little cart with Dumbo, and it was like a baby. An accident happened where the names fell down, the letters fell down from like a thing, and it becomes Dumbo. I thought that was kind of clever.
Yeah.
And eventually, people go to the circus for Dumbo. He becomes the big part of the show, and that's when Michael Keaton's character, V.A. Vanderveer, comes in and is like, okay, let me go ahead and buy you out. And you get your troupe and your people can come with me. And basically, that's the next part of the movie where they're part of the show, and he needs to get a sponsorship from the bank, and that's when Dumbo has to put on a big performance with Eva Green as Colette Marchand, which is a French street performer who is supposed to fly around Dumbo, and there's an accident. Kind of going over the basics. You can interrupt whenever you want anything else to say anything, Krista.
I skipped over them taking Dumbo's mother away because she killed did she kill the guy, or like is it just because like the building collapsed he got killed?
I think that the building collapsed. So okay, yeah, but going back, there's a scene where Dumbo's mom, there's no storks in this movie. It just gives birth, but we don't actually see it on screen, which is fine. We don't need to see that on screen. Obviously mothers are going to be protective of their children. And there's a scene where Dumbo is being laughed at, and he calls out to his mom, and his mom comes in and tries to rescue him, and which leads to the whole problem with the circus falling apart, and she becomes a mad elephant, quote unquote, because she was protecting her baby, and they can't control her, and she eventually gets sold off to a unseen character, and Dumbo has to be without her mother, and the kids are like, oh, we'll gain enough money from the performances and buy the mom back. And that was like a promise they made to Dumbo. Now, the kids, it's like, okay, that's a cute idea, kids, but that's not your call.
Mhm.
And you do realize that eventually V.A. Vanderveer did buy that elephant and is part of one of his attractions. And he has an attraction called Dreamland, which is kind of like a Disneyland.
Yeah, I found that really interesting that Disney was kind of like pastiching Walt Disney in the character of Vanderbilt, who turns out to be a villain.
Yeah. Because back in those days, I don't think there's that many amusement park, jump rides like that stayed around. There was the reason why circuses were that popular because you don't have to go anywhere for it, But he is rich enough that he can have his own location, and everything. So it was kind of weird. They have they're sending little Dumbo dolls, and it's like, are those the actual Dumbo dolls that they're gonna be?
I literally actually saw the exact same setup that they had in the movie was at the theater.
So it's like, is that gonna be the same dolls? Because that's kind of weird, So we know right away, just because of how he talks, that Michael Keaton's character as V.A. Vanderveer is the evil bad guy. He kind of just has that evil mustache twirling kind of sense to him. And it's kind of funny that it's reverse Batman Returns, where Danny DeVito is a good guy, where Michael Keaton is the bad guy, and it's because Batman Returns as Batman as Michael Keaton and Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and now it's roles reversed, and it's a cute little aside, just kind of one of those things you notice. And I found that on Twitter, actually, so I'm not going to complain that as my own, but it is kind of a fun, reunion of Batman Returns, which is actually directed by Tim Burton, this is the director of this movie, and which this one seems like a really sweet movie for Tim Burton, not as super dark or super twisted as the usual fare of his.
He obviously did add a little bit of his touch with Nightmare Island and with the mad elephant imagery, but for the most part, it's subtle.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've really turned away from being a fan of Tim Burton recently.
I never really liked him that much.
Which Big Fish was the movie I was talking about before, and Big Fish he directed that as well, about the the circus. So he has a Nightmare Before Christmas, but he wasn't directing; he was producing that. Alice in Wonderland, which I hate. Corpse Bride, which I like a lot. Edward Scissorhands, I like. Beetlejuice, I like. Batman, I like. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I can appreciate some aspects of it, but I don't like it as much as the original.
Yeah, I feel that.
Sweeney Todd, don't care about it, but maybe that's a girl thing. Girls love that movie for some reason. Not to play the gender card, but Krista, do you like Sweeney Todd?
I don't think I've ever watched it.
Sleepy Hollow, I thought was okay. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, I really dig. So he has an off and on record with movies, Tim Burton, and I really feel that this is a really toned down version of it. Like, you don't have any really super dark imagery. I mean, you do have some, but it's not the same Tim Burton fare. I really feel like Disney really kind of probably, watched him like a hawk and were like, no, you're not going to.
They pulled in the reins. They were like, no, sit down, sit.
Yeah.
No.
They broke his spirit. This is our game. This is one of our, Dumbo's well-known Disney product. You're not going to screw this up. They had the whip out there. So, yeah, the whole story with him going over there and they realizing that it's cruel to be on Dumbo and that, like, they didn't want to use the trapeze safety for one of the.
I genuinely thought that, like, when that happened, when they didn't pull out the net, I thought that Michael Keaton's character was trying to kill the trapeze artist.
Yeah, there's a couple of scary scenes in here that I was not thinking that was going to be in there, but you really have to, like, whoa, some really little kids could be like, but not too bad. It walked that line well, that it made it actually had stakes. It wasn't just completely, easy either.
Right.
So yeah, eventually we figured out that Vanderview is going to fire all the troop, and he doesn't really care about anything but money, and that's when the rest of the troop and Max Medici decide to make a plan to escape with Dumbo and escape with the mom elephant, because Vanderview said that having the mom here is a distraction, so why not just kill the animal? Which, damn. But okay. So to prevent the killing of the mom, they make this elaborate plan overnight, which we don't really see the planning stages of. We just they figure out a plan, and they escape. And just by coincidence, their escaping of the Dreamland amusement park causes it to burn down to flames.
That's funny.
It's just kind of a series of unfortunate events that causes the electrical aspects to not work right and cause a fire. And it's like, okay, I guess you want to give the comeuppance, to the bad guy. You want to make sure he gets his own, but it seemed a little bit far-fetched for me. I was like, all right, you?
Yeah, well, I think it did add some stakes because there was the moment when the kids were trapped inside the burning tent, and we have a bit of a rescue scene to come get them. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, but like the whole place burning down, not just like one tent.
That is a bit unrealistic, but.
And then, they just knew what levers to push down to turn off the lights and do stuff, and just by chance. And it just seemed kind of crazy that he was, back in there just pull the levers, and it's kind of, the ending is kind of weird. And then just so happens that they happen to have a boat that was leaving to take the elephants back to where they need to go. It's like, oh damn, that was convenient.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was like, okay, what's going to happen? Are these elephants going to be roaming free? Mm-hmm. I mean, eventually they'll get caught again. They can't just roam the plains of the country, So that was a really weird plot convenience that, happy that they have a way to get the elephants away. And that, of course, last minute, train conductor all aboard, and the elephants are basically ready to go,
Mm-hmm.
it's a cute thing. You can't, I do like that they have a callback to the original here. Well, they have callbacks to the original, like some scenes early in the movie with fire and like Dumbo saving like this fake building that's on fire, and Dumbo remembers that and gets water and uses that to help save his friends. That was a good callback. And eventually the Max Murchie, and then his troop decide to leave because it burnt down, make their own troop again, own circus, and they're not going to have any animal cruelty there, which sounds really good for us now, but it sounds a little bit weird back then.
Yeah, it was kind of like a weird leap and now we're not going to have any animals.
Yeah.
We're still kind of struggling with that today. Like, there are still issues with animal cruelty in like SeaWorld and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that was a big leap, and I agree with you there. I was like, okay, I could say no elephants I could see that. No more elephants. We're not gonna, but I still think they would have had it then. And I was kind of happy that they did not use the M word against Danny DeVito's character, because back in that time they definitely would have.
Yeah, that's.
We're not going to say the M word out of respect for little people around the world. We do, love all kinds of people. We don't hate.
That is one thing I think that like the movie could have dealt with more that it didn't really touch on, was we had like an amputee character, and we had like the circus, which is filled with quote unquote freaks. So like they could have dealt more with like the fact that like most of the main characters are being ostracized from society in some way or another, but they didn't really delve into it that much.
Yeah, I guess it's in a way they don't dive into it because they don't want to touch any of that, but it's still kind of there, just knowing how things were 100 years ago, which is kind of crazy saying that, a century ago. But I mean, hey, I guess they collected all the money from their paychecks and went back aboard, because that doesn't get explained at all. How in the world they have enough money to start the circus again? Did you get that or no?
No, I don't know. It was just like a kind of like quick like, and they get a happy ending. The end.
Yeah, and then somehow, some way, Dumbo and his mom.
It's like the bad guy was defeated, so now it's happy.
Yeah, and then somehow, some way, the Dumbo and the mom, Mrs. Jumbo, are back in the jungle. I'm not gonna say what continent because I have no idea. And they like find a whole bunch of elephants near a waterfall, and it's a nice scene when they reunite and Dumbo's flying around, and none of the elephants seem to be too excited. They're just like, okay, you're back, cool. And like none of the elephants could fly either, so it's just like, I would think they would be like cheering on, or more excited. Someone would recognize the mom, not the kid, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Well, like that is a question of like, where did it's like not really explained. They're just like, where did they go? Like, because like presumably she's like an Asian elephant, they say at the beginning, but like, did they send her back to Asia or did they send her to Africa? Did they just like send? You don't really know where they are, just that they're with elephants.
Yeah, and there wasn't. I don't think anyone from the troop went with them to make sure that they went to the right place.
Yeah.
A little bit overanalyzing it, but it is kind of okay. A happy ending to be a happy ending, but not really explained happy ending. So yeah, that's how the movie ends, and Mr. Vanderview, I guess, is taught his lesson. Max Merici now has a new animal cruel booth or animal cruel circus,
cruelty free.
Yeah. The little girl scientist thing I don't know about that. I understand what they were trying to do, but it was just a little bit obvious that they're trying to keep a female. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I felt like some of like the character aspects were like, I don't know, like it's like facts, and it's like I don't think the little girl actually like changed, had that much character development in the film. I think the dad did somewhat, but I feel like it's not as dramatic of a change as like I tend to expect from like these kind of films. I don't know.
So yeah, it just seemed a little bit odd that, she was like a main character and, she wanted to be a scientist. And, obviously there's very limited things they could do in 1919.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little bit weird that they, I do appreciate they name called Marie Curie, but didn't they know back then that she died of radiation? And
when did Marie Curie die? That's a good question.
So, yes, she was a very, very talented scientist, and radiation, everything we learn about radiation is a big deal from her. So it's just a little bit off-putting, I think, for me.
She died in 1934, so she was still alive when the film was set.
Yeah, you're right. So I guess they didn't know of the negative aspects of the radiation at that point. So that makes sense. Okay. But
it's also like I'm probably way, way over analyzing at this point, but the character who encourages her to be a scientist is the villain.
Yeah. Other things wanted to note, there's no talking animals in this movie.
Yeah, compared to, I'm pretty sure the original is like mostly animals and doesn't really deal with people that much.
Exactly. Another thing to note, there's technically one song, but it's not like sung by a lot of people. It's sung by basically one individual, which I kind of, expected there to be at least one song, where the original kind of is a musical, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one song is really cute and is the, cute little song about, being family and stuff. Dreamland, it seemed a little bit too advanced for 1919 as well.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
I was like, okay, roller coasters were around for a little bit right then and there, but yeah, it's a little bit advanced.
They had like animatronics and stuff in Dreamland.
Yeah, like half robots, which is like, okay, come on. Disney had problems with robots when he was doing it in the 50s. So, yeah. I kind of think the little way they kind of had an introduction, it's like, oh, you've seen a dragonfly, you've seen a horse fly, but have you seen an elephant fly? I thought that was actually really cute.
Yeah. It was stupid, but like in a good way.
Yeah, that line was in the original, 1941.
Did you ever see an elephant fly?
Well, I seen a horse fly.
I seen a dragonfly.
I seen a house fly. But I be done seen about everything when I see an elephant fly. What you say, boy?
So now we're going to get into a little bit of the original versus the new one. That line was in there. Now, I really, really like that Michael Buffer was here. It made perfect sense for the movie. I don't know if you know who Michael Buffer is.
Not sure.
So, he is well known for saying, "Let's get ready to rumble."
Let's get ready to rumble!
In different fights and like boxing matches.
That's a cool reference.
So he was the announcer in many scenes where he was announcing
Let's get ready for
Dumbo for Vanderveer. So that was a really cool nod, because that guy, Michael Buffer, is really, he just announces so well, and that's just like a perfect, way to use that actor to be announcer in this movie. I did find it funny that a lot of newspapers seem to just be obsessed with circus news.
Like all the circus articles were on the front page.
Main headline: circus. Nothing else going on in our world today, but you need to know about the circuses. So
it's literally like World War II, and like only people care about the circus.
Yeah, influenza killing millions. Okay.
What really matters is this weird elephant.
Yeah. Did you hear about the elephant trampling in a small area? Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but let's get back to the 1941. 1941, I think, was interesting because it's a very short and simple story. Very much different from this movie. You still get the same story beats where the mother is taken away from the son, or Dumbo, and that Dumbo learns how to fly. Now, in the cartoon, Dumbo doesn't fly until very late into the movie. Where here, he learns to fly basically pretty quickly after you meet him. Almost immediately after, I think. Right?
Yeah. I think it's partially because, like, Dumbo is kind of a known, like character in popular culture, so it would be kind of weird if you went like people go to see a Dumbo movie and they're like, obviously this elephant flies, and then like for the majority of the movie you're like, when's he gonna fly?
Yeah, and it makes sense. I think a lot of the things in this movie, making it to be a remake, makes sense because they're changing enough of it, which, hey, it's neither here or there, it's just how it is. They have to change things because it's not a talking animal movie, unlike Lion King or, other movies, so it's a different perspective. And you get, you have human characters in the original Dumbo, but you barely get to see them. And like the only real characters, like the ringmaster, everyone else doesn't really have faces. Just what a weird thing when I was noticing rewatching it last night. And, like, there's a whole thing with the storks, and they bring baby Dumbo back to the elephant. They bring babies everywhere, and the storks are cute. We actually got a storks movie a couple years ago, animated wise. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
No, I haven't. I'm just saying like no to like every movie you ask me about. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. But like the whole thing with the storks coming in and bringing in the animals, obviously that doesn't really work in a live action. And I'm glad we didn't see the birth of Dumbo. We just get illusion that they said. I like that they did not say she's pregnant. Because then those days you can't really use the word pregnant. They would say with child or something like that. Because back in the early or to mid 20th century, people are really weird about saying certain words. Anyway, like the original cartoon is really cartoony, which it's kind of a weird way to describe it, but like anything and everything is alive, and like the actual train is alive, and like saying choo choo choo, I can make it. And it's kind of just, it's difference between like having an animated movie where the characters are animated, but like it's still pretty grounded. No, the original is really out there. And in the original, there's a lot of scenes with rain, and like it's kind of weird why they have so many of those scenes. And they have this drunk pink elephant scene where Dumbo gets drunk because he drinks some water that people are partying from. And they do kind of reference this in the new movie with the bubbles. And the bubbles like animated and becoming like elephants. Now that bubble scene, I actually do like in the new one. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it actually looked pretty good in 3D to me. I feel like I said with like the other scenes, it was pretty dark, so it was kind of hard to really see, but I did like it.
Now, in the original, that scene goes on, and it's just like 10, 15 minutes, and it's like, all right, give it up, move on. And of course, the 1941 has Racist Crows, which we don't have here in 2019.
Wait, are they like the crows that are like, they're called Jim Crow?
Yeah. And they're all black crows. They all speak in jive, and yeah.
That aged really poorly.
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of understand what they're going for back then. I kind of don't think they were intentionally trying to be offensive, but it kind of, when you kind of think about the history, that's what they're doing. You know, it's kind of a weird thing, but they didn't even try that here in the new movie, which is totally fine. The movie 1941 ends in like basically Dumbo can fly and everyone's happy, and he still works for the circus. So it's you know, you don't have any of the characters here in the 2019 movie. None of that is here. So we don't get V.O. Vanderveer. You don't get the Marici. We don't get Holt Farrer or Colin Farrell character. We don't get the kids. We don't get any of the other troupe, which I do give appreciation that they did, you know, have, you know, a pretty decent, varied cast in the new movie. They have, you know, the very typical but, you know, decent cast of the troupe, where they have, you know, the snake charmer, the super strong guy, the mermaid, you know, all those kinds of tropes for circuses. So they, you know, didn't completely cover up everything. I did like that they did have the strong guy be also like the, you know, wear multiple hats.
Mm-hmm.
I do wish they'd given them more character.
Yeah, I feel like aside from like the main family and Max, the ringleader, like they didn't really like give any character development at all to like the rest of the troupe. They were just like bit characters.
Yeah. Which is, you know, understandable. It's a big cast, but you kind of want some more there. Yeah, it's a good movie. I really like it. Now, for the recent Disney live action remakes, I do think this is lesser than the other ones. Have you seen the other live action ones or no?
I've seen Beauty and the Beast. Are there others?
Yeah, Sleeping Beauty came out almost years ago now, I think.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then we also got Jungle Book. It came out a couple years ago.
I didn't see that either. I'm actually like looking forward to Aladdin and the Lion King, even though I know a lot of people have been like hating on it.
I was very, I don't know how to put it. I was very cautious for both of them, just because you mentioned this in your review, in the written review, that it's good. That actually makes sense to re-release this movie because it's been such a long time since the original came out, and we don't have such a huge connection to the character as much as previous generations, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So this one does feel like a very different story.
Yeah.
The original.
Beauty and the Beast, like, is basically the same story with, like, small differences in additions, but, like, it's basically, like making a musical performance and filming it, which, like, is fine, but it's still, like, obviously a remake, and, like, people are gonna love the animated version better, whereas, like, with Dumbo, it's, like, I think, like, people can actually say this remake is potentially the better version.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because it's, you know, such an early Disney movie. I think it's like the second one, I think, after the second or third. I don't remember off the top of my head the order of these movies. But it's pretty early on, so people will have a very nostalgic feel for it. But I don't think it's better than the original cartoons. Like I don't know. I don't consider Dumbo like being top tier Disney. So I would consider Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs a better movie than the Dumbo.
Yeah.
Some other live action remakes: Alice in Wonderland, also done by Tim Burton, which I really, really don't like. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah, no, that was weird.
Maleficent, which technically is a remake, kind of.
Oh, I actually have some insider knowledge on Alice in Wonderland. Would you like me to share? So one of my professors, 3D professors, his name's Buzz Hayes, and he's like been a stereographer on he's a stereographer on Monster House, I think, and that one movie about like guinea pigs that was like superhero guinea pigs or something. I don't remember exactly. I never saw that, but he talked about how like originally they were going to be like doing Alice in Wonderland as like a native 3D film, and that they were planning on doing like some cool things with like macro and micro stereo when she like grows and shrinks. But then they ended up like not doing it in native 3D, and so like that was scrapped. And he felt like kind of cheated about that.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's really just an aside, but
no, it's fine. I don't like Alice the Looking Glass either. I think both Alice movies are terrible. I don't. That's just me though. Pete's Dragon is technically, a live action remake, which I thought was okay. Jungle Book I really love. I think that's a really great remake. Came out a couple years ago. I actually rewatched the original after watching the remake, and I really like the remake more, even though the music is not as catchy,
Mm-hmm.
Beauty and the Beast, even though the differences were really minor, I still love this new version of it,
That's fair.
And Aladdin and Lion King are just like generational key flashpoints, watershed moments that every kid in the 90s loved those two movies. So that's going to be really hard for, to review, but also really exciting to review because, it's one of those things that how can they redo this and not like ruin it,
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's another discussion for when those movies come out. I do think, I think Dumbo is better than Pete's Dragon, or about the same as Maleficent. I like Maleficent. I didn't love it. Better than Cinderella, which is kind of boring. Better than Alice in Wonderland. So, not as bad as they can be, but not as great as they can be either.
There's like so many live action Cinderella movies that I don't even know which one you're referring to.
Yeah, I think that same year another one came out that was just by another studio. I think that was one with that girl from Twilight.
Oh yeah.
And then that was a totally different take on Cinderella or something like that. But going back to Dumbo, I did like this movie. I did. Basically, the kind of conveniences here for the story that are just a little easy that you can't just whatever. We talk about the CG in the spoiler-free version, and it's kind of weird to say, but like Dumbo doesn't have a heft to him, like a weight on screen to really make him a believable CG character. Where I think he does look like an elephant. The other elephants, other animals here look fine, except for the monkey, which looks really fake.
It feels like Dumbo is like a puppet.
Yeah. It's on that edge where it does look weird at first, but you get used to it. but I never really 100% thought it was 100% real. You know?
Yeah.
Where, other CG animated films, I don't question it anymore. I just move on. And another really good example of that would be the modern Planet of the Apes movies, where I never questioned the visuals there. Those movies had such great visual style, and the apes look fantastic and very real. I didn't question that. Did you like the Apes movies by chance?
I didn't watch them.
So, yeah, I do like this movie. Will I see it again? Nah. Not really. Is it a terrible movie that everyone... I don't know why people really seem to be jumping on the bandwagon of hating this movie, but I think it's fine. It's a fine remake, and it works. Do you have any last words you want to talk about? Anything else you want to mention that we haven't talked about in the spoiler-free version?
I think we covered most of what I wanted to talk about, I think.
So, yeah, Dumbo's a fine movie. It's not the best, but it's not terrible either. I think, it's a kid's movie, which makes sense. I think little ones may still cry. I was a little bit crying, a little bit, the feels, on purpose.
Oh, I completely forgot to mention the fire story.
All right, what happened at the fire?
Okay, so when I was first going to the theater, there was a little bit of smoke outside, so it looked like, oh, maybe there's a fire nearby or something, but didn't think anything of it, and just went into the theater and started watching the movie, and within the first minute, the projector just cuts off, and the fire alarm starts going off, and there's a voice on the intercom or whatever that's like there's an emergency in the building, please evacuate. So we went outside, and there was smoke everywhere outside. And then within a few minutes, someone from a theater employee was go back inside. There's less smoke inside than there is outside. And then they restarted the movie, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who went back to see Dumbo. So I had the theater all by myself. And it was actually interrupted a second time, midway through the movie, the fire alarm went off again. And I guess the fire alarm automatically turns off the projectors, which I never really had to think about, but it makes sense. But as soon as I left the room, there was an employee that was yeah, you don't have to evacuate, you can go back inside. And I ended up getting a free movie ticket out of it. They were here's a pass for another movie. So that was fun, even though it wasn't really their fault, because they couldn't control. There was the building that was right across the street was an apartment building, and it just completely burned down. And there were when I went outside, there was a row of 10 fire trucks or something ridiculous. And they had been fighting it for 5 hours, and a bunch of people were displaced from their homes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it must be kind of weird watching this movie and they have these scenes of fire.
Yeah, really. It didn't. The fire alarm didn't go off when there was actually fire on screen. That would have been really funny.
So yeah, that's interesting. It's a fun story. Do you remember seeing the cartoon originally or no?
No, I never did. I don't think.
I mean, 1941. I don't remember owning the VHS or the family owning the VHS. I vaguely remember seeing this when I watched it last night. I was like, I don't remember half of this. I don't remember 2/3 of this. I barely remember, Dumbo flying, and I remember the mom leaving, but I don't remember most of this movie. So, and the movie feels short. It feels like it's an hour and 5 minutes or something. So the original, and most of it is just kind of animation for animation's sake and not really story, you know. So in some ways, I would consider this a better movie than the original. You know, yeah, the original was fun in 1941. You know, as good as it probably could have been back then. But I do think this is more of a complete story and a story that makes more sense. You know,
I do think it is partly pacing that like over the years, like we've been expecting like faster and faster stories and like stories with like more meat to them, whereas like, you know, in 1940s, like a lot of like 1940s, 1950s television is actually like painful to watch because of like how slow paced everything is.
Now, did it bother you any that they never explained how he flew? They just said he has big ears and that was that? Or did you want...
No, that's fine. It's like, I was willing to suspend my disbelief for that one thing, even though it's really not realistic whatsoever.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to play some kind of magic or mutants or something. No, they never explain it. They do always have a feather until the very end, where they realize he doesn't need a feather, which is true to the original cartoon, where he doesn't actually need the feather at all. It was something that he believed he needed. And I was kind of surprised that Dumbo doesn't do a variety of tricks. He just kind of flies in circles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is one thing that I felt like I did feel a bit cheated, that like the acrobatic performances with Colette and Dumbo, I'm pretty sure we never actually see them do their entire performance, because like every time it's like cut off by some plot point or another.
Yeah, and it, you know, for the sake of having a circus, that we don't really see the performances, and it's kind of sad, you know. It's kind of a tease.
Yeah, like I said, I actually generally enjoy all Colette's like aerial work in 3D. I just wish there was more of it. I feel like there wasn't enough.
Yeah, I did think that her French accent was pretty bad, though. But nah, neither here or there. You know, I do like overall the movie. Overall, I did find it fun and did, you know, make me cry a little bit. And I do think it looks fine. You know, I can't imagine that like 5 years from now, it may look, the animation may be so much better that it's gonna look weird, but it's fine enough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did want more of the troupe and, you know, more of the circus regular day to day to really get a good family sense of this, you know, because the circuses do become like a family unto themselves, because that's their choice. That's their life, you know. They live together. They, you know, work together. So it's just part of, you know, a community onto itself. So I would have liked more on that, but it was fun. All right. I guess that's basically it for this podcast. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Before this podcast ends, I want to give a thank you to my patrons. Right now, we have one patron, which is David from Spain, and I want to thank you for your financial support. All right. So that's going to be it for this podcast.
We now have a Patreon, and the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.
And we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a little bit everywhere. Just look for us, 3D or 2D. And of course, review us on iTunes. And if you want to write us a letter, our email address is email3d or2d@gmail.com. So that's going to be it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.